Hello and welcome to Chapter 6 of the OpenStax Lifespan Development Textbook. Today we're going over social and emotional development in early childhood, ages 3 to 6. You can find a link to the free textbook in the description below. All information is directly from OpenStax, and thank you for providing this free resource for students. Let's begin. Figure 6.1. Preschool children learn through interaction with each other and their environments. What we're going to be diving into in this chapter includes the following: social and emotional development in early childhood, identity and context, gender development and racial identity, families as context, social context, peers, play, and friendship, as well as media exposure and literacy. Section 6.1, social and emotional development in early childhood. We will look into explaining Erikson's third stage of psychosocial development, initiative versus guilt, identify achievements in development of the self and self-knowledge, identify developmental achievements in emotional regulation, describe the changing social environments of early childhood and key achievements in social development. Figure 6.2. Young childhood can be filled with confidence, joy, and pride in achievements. Figure 6.3. In early childhood, some preschoolers, as seen in Image A, prefer to stay close to their caregivers and keep to familiar places. In Image B, while others are happy to run and explore. This is just one way in which temperament can be diverse in early childhood. Figure 6.4. The Big Five is a measure of personality factors of openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism present across the lifespan, and often shortened to the acronym OCEAN. Let's go through each trait, and we will look into what happens when individuals score low versus when they score high in each respective trait. The first trait is openness. Now, if individuals score high in openness, they're creative, artistic, imaginative, and perceptive thinkers who enjoy new experiences. Those who score low in openness is a realistic, concrete thinker who prefers routine and tradition. Those who score high in consciousness are orderly and neat. They clean up materials after using them, and they put a lot of effort into finishing tasks. If individuals score low in conscientiousness, they're spontaneous and start new tasks before others are finished. As well, they don't mind a cluttered, disorganized space. Next trait is extroversion. Those who score high in extroversion prefer to spend time with others. They're motivated by being around others and play in more active settings. Those who score low in extroversion prefer to spend time alone, and they play in quiet settings, commonly known as introversion. Individuals who score high in agreeableness, they seek to please others and maintain positive relationships with others. Those who score low in agreeableness prefer their autonomy and choice over the approval of others. Next is neuroticism. Those who score high in neuroticism are reactive and easily upset with strong emotions to daily events. They have a higher propensity for experiencing negative emotions. And those who score low in neuroticism are calm, emotionally stable, and able to discuss upsetting events. Table 6.1, regulatory and interpersonal skills in early childhood. We're going to look at the skill and then an example. First skill is attention control. An example of this is looking away or walking away from something that is tempting or irritating to decrease desire or irritation. Coping strategies can include distractions such as using fidget toys, twirling hair, and wiggling toes. Next skill is calming of emotions. An example of this would be breathing deeply, stretching, closing eyes to calm down and lower the level of emotionality, counting to 10, taking a drink of water, and using muscle relaxation. Skill number 3 is planning and goal-directed behavior. An example can be focusing on a future goal to stay on task by completing a chore, complying with a rule, or avoiding distractions. Next, perspective taking, understanding the desires, wants, and motivations of other people. Next skill is empathy. An example is feeling the affective emotional state of others and offering consolation and comfort. It's not just feeling sorry for somebody like sympathy, it's actually placing yourself in the shoes of others and feeling their emotions as well. Assertive communication is the last skill, and it's being able to communicate needs, desires, and struggles to ask for assistance and help. It would be an example of assertive communication. Figure 6.5. Marshmallows are a tempting treat. Let me know, would you be able to resist if you were left alone with a sweet confection? I've seen some individuals do this on TikTok and other social media outlets where they'll have a child with a candy or maybe it's marshmallows and they'll leave the room and they'll instruct them to not take part in that candy or that marshmallow until they've come back. I find that video pretty funny. There's multiple on it. If you have some time, go and look into those. Figure 6.6. There are many possible signs of autism spectrum disorder, and the appearance of some does not imply ASD is present. However, early signs may warrant a referral to a specialist for professional assessment. We're going to look at the possible signs of autism in 4-year-old children. We'll look at the communication, social interactions, as well as repetitive behavior. When it comes to communication, some possible signs can include cannot form sentences, does not answer questions in the expected way, uses reverse pronouns, rarely uses body language, uses a flat or sing-song tone of voice, does not understand jokes or sarcasm, nor does not tell stories. Now, when it comes to social interaction, what signs can look like include avoiding eye contact, not sharing or taking turns, doesn't engage in pretend play, is not interested in others, does not like being touched, uses facial expressions that do not match mood, cannot be easily soothed, has difficulty understanding people's feelings, as well as have difficulty in talking about their own feelings. Now, what some repetitive behaviors can look like include displaying repetitive motions like flapping hands or rocking, plays with same toys in same way every time, is easily upset over changes in routine, focuses on certain parts of objects such as wheels, has a specific passionate interest, and prefers to line up toys or organize them specifically. Section 6.2, Identity and Context, Gender Development and Racial Identity in Early Childhood. We'll look into defining biological sex as gender as distinct concepts, explain early influences on gender identity and role development, describe racial awareness and understanding in early childhood, and explain early influences on racial and ethnic identity development. Figure 6.7. Young children often follow rules about gender expression, such as that in image A, where boys must be more active, and in image B, and girls more sedentary in their play behavior. Figure 6.8. Childhood toys often represent exaggerated forms of gender, such as seen in image A, large eyes, and in image B, inflated muscles. Figure 6.9. Cooking traditional dishes together is one way young children learn about their culture and ethnicity. Figure 6.10. Young children learn a lot about race and ethnicity from their parents. Section 6.3, Families as Context in Early Childhood. We're going to look into briefly describing different parenting styles, discuss the key research on rewards and punishment for children, explain how siblings influence development in early childhood, and describe the psychological impact on children of divorce. Figure 6.11. Even current parenting trends often fall clearly along Baumrine's original two major parenting dimensions of warmth and structure. Looking at the parenting style from Baumrine's is the low warmth versus high warmth, low structure, and high structure. When you have low structure and low warmth, this is the uninvolved parent. They're very parent focused. It's almost like if the parent is even within the house, it might as well be as good as if they weren't there to begin with, due to the low structure and low warmth that they provide. Now, when there's low structure and high warmth, this is your permissive parenting style. They're very child-focused. Now, your permissive parents are often viewed as the cool parents growing up, but then you grow up and you realize we really shouldn't have been able to do the things we were able to do at X person's house because their parents let them get by with a lot. Where this can provide a very confident child into adulthood, whenever it comes to their parents being the authority figure and letting a lot of things go, they may tend to think that when they get into the real world that authority figures and the law may not apply to them as much, or they may still be able to get out of engaging in behaviors that wouldn't otherwise be tolerated. Now you've got high structure and low warmth. This is your authoritarian parenting style. very rules focused, very much my way or the highway type of parents. They have unrealistic expectations for the child, and it's really very much like a dictatorship. Although authoritarian is spelled similarly to authoritative to the bottom right, which is high structure and high warmth, this is the healthiest parenting style. Although they're spelled similarly, please don't mix them up. They couldn't be further from the opposite of one another. Now, the authoritative parents are very relationship focused. They allow the child to utilize their voice. You may not get what you want every time, but you're at least allowed to articulate yourself and maybe compromise with your parents. It's not as if your voice is going to get completely shut down, but alternatively, you're just not going to get what you want every time. It's a very healthy dynamic. They set reasonable limits, reasonable expectations, and that is why authoritative is considered to be the healthiest parenting style. Figure 612. Many parents prioritize showing warmth, but also provide structure to their children. Figure 6.13. Culture influences the way parents prioritize and navigate child rearing. 614. Parenting priorities can vary across a range of cultures and countries, but they share common trends in prioritizing both warmth and structure, and in parentheses there is control. I encourage you to pause this video and look through the parenting style priorities across cultures. You have the difference between United States white, Hispanic, and black versus Thailand, Sweden, Philippines, Kenya, Jordan, Italy, Colombia, and China. It's pretty eye-opening in the difference between these four factors. Figure 6.15. Children learn effectively when they are rewarded with praise and attention for their efforts. Let's look at table 6.2 for a moment. The outcomes of corporal punishment. Let's look at the outcome and an example. Let's look at short-term disobedience first. An example of this would be spanking increases frustration in children and is linked with more short-term defiance and problem behaviors. Long-term disobedience as an outcome, and an example of this, spanking does not reduce temptation or guilt over the long term. Low morale internalization. An example of this is spanking is less effective than other techniques in helping children to learn new values and morals. Aggression. Spanking is linked with more aggressive behaviors in children. I know some may have something to say in the comments about that, or in a classroom setting. That tends to be an interesting debate. Then mental health problems. Spanking is linked with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, and hyperactivity. Next is criminal behavior. Spanking is linked with delinquency and vandalism. Conflictual parent-child relationships. An example of this, spanking is linked with strained or poor family relationships and less vulnerability and disclosure. And lastly is risk of child abuse. Spanking increases the risk that children will be the recipients of child abuse. Let's look at table 6.3 for a moment as well, the prevalence of child abuse and neglect in the United States. We're going to look at some subtypes of maltreatment, as well as the prevalence in children between 0 and 17 years. Firstly is neglect, the prevalence being 25.2%, physical abuse 11.5%, sexual abuse 4.1% prevalence, and emotional abuse is 3.5% of prevalence. Figure 6.16. Siblings can provide many opportunities for positive developmental growth. Figure 6.17. Children in large families spend less time one-on-one with parents, but more time socializing with their siblings. Figure 6.18. Children who are put in the role of messenger or mediator during a divorce are especially at risk of negative outcomes. Let's pause for a moment and look at table 6.4, protective and risk factors during a divorce. We'll look at protective factors for child well-being and then risk factors for child well-being. Firstly, protective factors, we're looking at ex-partners remaining civil around children, and then risk factors, ex-partners arguing and fighting, ex-partners cooperating for child's well-being, and then risk factors, ex-partners competing for the child's love. Protective factor number 3, allowing child to see both parents regularly whereas a risk factor is reducing child's time with family members. Next, allowing a child to feel strong emotions as a protective factor. The risk factor is relying on the children for emotional support. Next, having enough financial resources as a protective factor, whereas a risk factor is relying on the children for financial support. Explaining divorce in age-appropriate ways is a protective factor, whereas a risk factor is using children as a mediator. And finally, allowing a child to be a child, whereas a risk factor here would be just expecting a child to grow up fast. Section 6.4, Social Context, Peers, Play, and Friendship in Early Childhood. Firstly, we're going to describe briefly the nature of friendships in early childhood, explain the role of play in social and emotional development, identify types of aggression exhibited in early childhood, identify the motivation for social withdrawal in early childhood, and finally, identify prosocial behavior exhibited in early childhood. Figure 6.19. Friendships in early childhood provide a host of developmental benefits. Table 6.5, the benefits of friendship. We're going to look at the cognitive, social, emotional, and physical. Beginning with cognitive, some benefits include perspective taking, problem-solving skills, academic achievement, executive function. The social benefits include companionship, communication skills, conflict resolution skills, as well as peer acceptance. Benefits of emotional aspects include self-esteem, secure attachment, self-regulation, and stress relief, as well as empathy and compassion. And finally, the physical benefits include gross motor skills, fine motor skills, activity level, as well as balance and coordination. Figure 6.20. Play can help children develop cognitive, social, emotional, and physical skills. Figure 6.21. In early childhood, children are likely to show a variety of aggression types. And knowing more about the aggressive behavior can aid in teaching children to regulate their aggression. We're going to look at the aggression types as well as the dimension. Intention is the dimension firstly listed. Aggression type instrumental. The child has a goal they want to achieve by being aggressive. And then hostile. The child is overwhelmed and frustrated by a situation. Let's look at the second dimension of directedness, the aggression types being targeted and untargeted. Targeted, a child has a clear target in mind to direct their aggression at. Then untargeted, the child had not planned target, but is being disruptive in general. Next dimension is catalyst, and the aggressive types being instigator and reactor. Instigator, the child was the first to act in the situation that become aggressive. The reactor, the child is reacting to an already happening situation. Second to last is position. Aggression types being attack and defense. With attack, the child is aggressive as an attacker on another. Now, defense, the child became aggressive due to feeling the need to defend themselves. Lastly is morality. Antisocial versus prosocial. With antisocial, the child is being aggressive in a way that only helps themselves. Whereas prosocial, the child is being aggressive to help others or defend others. Figure 6.22. Children's social experiences are shaped by their motivation to approach and or to avoid social interactions. We have low approach, low avoidance, and high avoidance. Between low avoidance and low approach is introversion. The child is happy alone. With low avoidance but high approach, child is social. The child is socially engaged with others. High avoidance and low approach is avoidance. So the child fearfully avoids others. Now with high avoidance and high approach, this includes shyness. The child wants to socialize but is fearful. Figure 6.23. Playing board games requires many pro-social skills such as following rules, taking turns, and gracefully accepting winning or losing. Section 6.5. Media exposure and literacy in early childhood. What we'll briefly go through in this section is describe the media diets of children in early childhood, as well as compare the positive and negative effects of media exposure during this time. Figure 6.24. A large majority of children watch videos on YouTube or other streaming services such as Netflix and Disney+. Let's look at the percentage of children using a media platform in 2021. In 2021, the percentage of children watching YouTube is 85%. Streaming is 71%, gaming is 60%, social media 46%, television at 41%, radio 37, mobile apps 23, cinema 17%, and finally magazines at 16%. Figure 6.25. Let's look at a possible pathway to explain the link between violence on television and aggression in children. Firstly, desensitized, then normalized, then justified, and then the action. This will conclude Chapter 6 of the Lifespan Development textbook provided by OpenStax. I thank you for getting through the entirety of this video, and I will see you in the next one for Chapter 7. Have a good rest of your day, and thank you to OpenStax for providing this free resource for students. Bye-bye.